Texas, coming off the win at Houston, heads back to Austin to face off against BYU. That kickoff on home turf this Saturday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern time. The Cougars coming into town 5-2. Let's go ahead and look at a little bit of a matchup preview graphic here. Last meeting back in 2014, BYU beat the brakes off of Texas 41-7. Texas fans might remember a guy by the name of Taysom Hill, who wreaked havoc for the Cougars in that game. Texas is an AP top 10 team for 7 straight weeks now. That's the longest streak since 2009 for the Longhorns. And BYU, an interesting stat here, number 3 in the country right now in turnover margin at +9. So that certainly comes into effect with our first point here, Chip. When we talk about a guy who's making his first career start in Malik Murphy, the redshirt freshman quarterback taking over for the injured Quinn Ewers, what are you expecting from the young, talented quarterback who has really waited his turn here at Texas? Didn't think his turn would come until potentially next season. Now he's thrust into the fire when Texas is trying to compete for a Big 12 championship and make the college football playoff.
Yeah, I mean, Malik Murphy could have gone to other schools. And, even after the spring game, when he looked so good, he got interest from a couple of SEC schools that I was told. And he decided, you know what, I'm good here at Texas. I'm going to bet on myself. Well, here's that opportunity. We know Malik Murphy is a big human being with a big arm who looked really good in the spring game through a 79-yard touchdown pass. But this is a different level, and BYU brings in a veteran defense. They're going to throw different looks at Malik Murphy, who, seeing it in practice every day is one thing, and seeing it having to make adjustments on the fly against a team that's 5-2 that went to Arkansas and won is a totally different thing. But, you look at TCU redshirt freshman quarterback Josh Hoover, who got his first start against BYU just a few weeks ago and looked great, threw for 4 touchdowns in a 44-11 win over BYU. You see what can happen. Obviously, that's what Texas fans would love to see, but we just have to see how Malik Murphy settles in and how Steve Sarkisian calls the game. Obviously, Malik Murphy doesn't have to do it all by himself, but this is a confident young man, Tommy. We heard from his teammates this week that he's a huge presence in the locker room, that players feel like they have a personal connection with Malik Murphy. One source told me he's the mayor of the locker room. Steve Sarkisian talked about his charisma and the fact that guys will want to play for him and rally around him. So all that will be, those are things to look for in this game with Malik Murphy now stepping in for the injured Quinn Ewers.
So, Chip, in our roundtable this week, we talked about, what would the game plan be for Malik Murphy? And I can't speak for your answer, but mine was kind of similarly to what we've heard from his teammates. Let him settle in a little bit and establish the run game with the run game that Texas has, and then maybe let him sling it around and show off that absolute laser of an arm that he has. We saw how fast he threw it against Houston last week in his 2 passes when he missed Adonai Mitchell in a crossing route and threw it about 50 miles an hour, but it was 5 yards behind him. So obviously Texas is going to want to establish the run, I think, early. And the good news for Malik Murphy is he's got a guy by the name of Jonathan Brooks right next to him. JB, one of, if not, I think he's the second now in Big 12 leading rushing, but he's had so much success this season. Cedric Baxter took a leap, I think, last week. And then obviously Savion Red has been doing well in those 4th and short or goal line situations. How much can the Longhorns lean on Brooks and that crew running the ball? And, if they don't have success on the ground, if BYU maybe loads the box, where do they go from there?
Yeah, I mean, you start with Jonathan Brooks. That's the game plan against Kansas, running it 50 plus times, holding the ball in that game for nearly 40 minutes. That's the recipe for success. The only way BYU can beat you is if Keaton Slovis is able to throw the football to his wide receivers. Well, what's the best defense for that? Keeping him off the field. And that's what Texas did against Kansas, running it, 50 plus times for over 300 yards. And you run the ball every way possible until you exhaust every kind of run you can dream up for Jonathan Brooks. And I would lead with Jonathan Brooks, like CJ Baxter looking good against Houston. That's great. But Jonathan Brooks, I wrote this week, has every 6 carries, he has an explosive play. And those explosive plays, he's had 17 of them in the last 5 games, have averaged more than 24 yards a pop. I mean, that's amazing that we're talking about running back numbers, and that one man can generate that many explosive plays. I mean, he's had a 67-yard run, a 61-yard run, a 54-yard run for a touchdown, 40-yard run, a 29-yard run for a touchdown against Oklahoma. So definitely lean on Jonathan Brooks. If not handing it to him, then, throwing him those swing passes out of the backfield. And look, Malik Murphy's got a big arm. He's going to want to airmail a few down the field to Xavier Worthy, Jonte Cook, Adonai Mitchell, and Steve Sarkisian is all about that. So that plays into what Malik Murphy does best. I would say the short or the deep ball. If and look, he had a nice intermediate pass on a 3rd and 7, I think, early in the season against Rice, where he threw it to Isaiah Nair. And so, obviously the crossing routes tend to be an easy pass for young quarterbacks, but I'm definitely building with the running game and the check down passing game, all of it involving the running backs, and then building from there.
Completely agree with you there, Chip. We'll flip to the defensive side of the ball now. Something that you wrote about a little bit earlier today. BYU has not done very well when the quarterback gets pressured. Keaton Slovis has struggled under pressure. For Texas, their edge group right now a little bit banged up. Colton Vasek has been dealing with that back injury. You reported earlier that Ethan Burke is out this game with a knee injury. So now it feels like, again, you wrote about this morning, you turned to a youngster with a lot of power and a lot of quickness, and Anthony Hill Jr., who showed how good of a pass rusher he was against Alabama in Tuscaloosa. Do you think the Longhorns maybe lean into him playing that role a little bit more on Saturday, and if these injuries persist going forward, to try and establish a stronger pass rush?
Yeah, I mean, I think Anthony Hill, it's not just me saying it. Pro Football Focus says it, and the numbers, the stats say it. Anthony Hill is tied with Ethan Burke for the team lead in sacks with 3. He had 2 of them against Alabama. The other one was against Oklahoma. Those happened to be the 2 games where he played the most up on the line of scrimmage and rushed the passer. He's playing more and more at the weak side linebacker position. We saw him drop into coverage a lot against Houston last week. There were times where he was spying on quarterback Donovan Smith. He's not going to have to worry about spying on Keaton Slovis. Keaton Slovis, it's not a runner. I think he's run for 33 positive yards this season. The rest of it is sack yardage. So I need Anthony Hill up on the line of scrimmage because he is, according to Pro Football Focus, he's the highest rated pass rusher, not named Tavondre Sweat and Byron Murphy. So unleash him on Keaton Slovis. Let Jalen Ford and David Benda handle the linebacker duties, Mo Blackwell. But I need Anthony Hill up on the line of scrimmage getting after Keaton Slovis. And look, they're going to have to, bring pressure because Keaton Slovis, in the 2 losses this season that BYU's had, he threw a pick 6. He threw a pick 6 against Kansas, and he threw one against TCU, and he was pressured on both of those throws. And he also fumbled against Kansas, and he also threw a second interception against TCU. And that, those turnovers played a big role in TCU and Kansas winning comfortably over BYU. So, yeah, I think that there's no doubt that Anthony Hill is going to be a great weak side linebacker. Right now, his skill set, I need him up on the line of scrimmage getting after Keaton Slovis.
Chip, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it would be interesting to kind of see Anthony Hill Jr. play sort of like how LSU used Harold Perkins last season as a true freshman, really just giving him free reign, allowing him to get after the quarterback, maybe kind of patiently wait at the top of the field, and all of a sudden when, they're least expecting it, come crashing down and be right in your face. I think that would be interesting, but no comparison there between Hill and Perkins, but more just the similar usage. I think would be interesting to see against BYU. All right, now everybody's favorite segment of the show, game predictions. Chip, you first.
Well, I thought that last week was going to be a fiesta and a big win for Texas. Clearly, it wasn't. So I guess I need to, until I see this pass defense improve. And look, BYU brings a formidable passing attack. Keaton Slovis throwing to a bunch of 6'6", 6'4", 6'3" receivers. They're every bit as big and talented as the receivers we saw against Houston last week. So until I see that pass defense improve, I'm going to go Texas 28, BYU 17. How about you, Tommy?
All right, so you had it a little bit closer than I did, but very similarly, I think this is a week where if Anthony Hill gets used the way that Chip wrote about and what we've talked about on the show, the Texas defense is going to have a lot more success. The question for me is still the secondary. Is this a group that can make a jump? Can Ryan Watts come back healthy and make an impact? Can Jalen Catalon come back healthy and make an impact? All that is still left to be seen. We saw how much they missed those two on Saturday against Houston. So I'm going to go Texas 28, BYU 10. I think the defense is a little bit better of a game, and as I'm sure they've been pushed through the mud in practice this week, especially on the back end of the defense. So going a little bit closer on my end. That's going to do it for the Horns 24/7 game preview episode. Thanks so much for joining us here on the Horns 24/7 YouTube channel. As always, be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel, plus turn on post notifications so you're the first to know when new content comes your way. For Chip Brown and the rest of the crew, I'm Tommy Yars. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.